if you are making a Roblox game, it doesn't matter if it's a fighting game, a simulator, an RPG, or anything in between, you need to have a state manager. It's one of those behind the scenes systems that controls so many things, and it's very important to have. It's used in combat systems, it's used in simulators, and today I'm going to show you how to build a simple state manager that you can put into any game. It will control the character, stuns, and things like that. So you can drop it into a fighting game or a simulator game or any other type of game where you need to change things relating to the character. Now, what is a state manager? Well, a state manager is a system that keeps track of what the player is doing at any moment. For example, if the player is parrying, blocking, dashing, it will keep track of that so you know, and you can check it inside of other scripts to control certain things. Like if someone's attacking and the person they're attacking has a state for parrying, then the attack won't land and it will parry. In a simulator game, it can be checking if the player is using an item, like they clicked with a tool or something like that, and it will store that state to know that you can't do it again. Now, obviously that is a simpler situation, but it's also got other uses, like if you have a boss in your game or you need to keep track of who did certain things, you would use a state manager for that. And it's also used for stuns, so you can keep track of who is stunned and update the stun timer if the person is hit again. And this is how you can prevent players swinging a sword while they are stunned or dashing, or even in a cutscene you could use it for that. You can obviously do this without a state manager, but with a state manager it is so much simpler and quicker, and once you have one you will not want to stop using one. I will also be showing game examples of where I've used it, so you can get an idea of where you can use it if the explanation wasn't enough. And this video will be chaptered so you can see and skip to the different sections if you'd like to just go ahead and move past the tutorial, or you want to skip to certain sections if you already understand what certain things do. And as usual, you can get the whole thing in the description for free if you would like to, but I do encourage you to watch the full video because I need to explain how it works, and so you can also see where you can use it in your games and fully understand how you should be using it. Now here I will actually begin with the tutorial and show you how to make it and explain what everything actually does. So this is pretty much done inside of a module, so you can use it anywhere inside of your game, and ignore those are for other videos. So you just want to create a module inside of replicated storage, and you can just name it state handler like I've done here. And inside of here you just need to add these two tables at the top like this, and these tables will be storing every single player and the states that they have. And obviously the stun table will be storing the players that are stunned and for their duration. So I will be getting back to these. They are closed off right now, so I will explain the setting state, which is the primary part of this. So I'll explain this, and then I will come back to the get state and return state, and then I'll explain these ones down here. So let's explain the set state function. So, and to create a function inside of a module, you just do function dot module, module dot whatever you want to name the function. This is how you do a function inside of a module script. And you can also do module dot function, module dot whatever you want to name it. So set state is equal to function. You can also create a function like this inside of a module script, but we are going to do it like this. So let me close these. So let me actually explain what's going on in here and how you'd actually use this in another script. I will actually show you that as well. So let me just create a script inside of server script service, and I will show you how you would require it. So if you'd want to use this inside of another script, you would just do local module is equal to require. Now require is for module scripts. This is how you get module scripts. So you require and then where the module script is. So in this case it's replicated storage dot module script. So I would do game dot replicated storage dot module script, and now I would have the module. So if I wanted to, for example, fire this function here, I would just do module dot set state. It's that simple. And the parameters inside of here are just these. So the first one will be the player, second one state key, third is, I will get to these. But in here you would just do exactly that. You do the player, you'd put the player in here, then you would put whatever the state you want to give them, and so on for the rest. I will come back to this, and I will actually explain how the state setting works. So in here you want to have the player, state key, which is actually the state that you want to set for the player. The value is the value that you want the state to be set to. So for example, you could have parrying and the value would be true, and the duration is how long you want the state to last. So parrying for like 0.2 seconds if you want that. So here we do a check. So if not states player, so if inside of the states table you don't have the player, then it will add the player, because this would mean it's the first time the player has had a state set to them. Then it will do this: states player is equal to table. So it would create a table in here for the player. Player is equal to another table. There we go. That's pretty much what it would do. But the player would be equal to the player's name. So whatever the player's name is. And down here we will set the state for the player to the state key and to the value. So we will create the state that you set inside of here, and you would make equal to the value. Then here we just do a check for the duration. So if the duration and type of duration is a number, so if the thing you put in here is a number, so this is just a check in case you put something random like a letter, then it won't do anything here, but it will still set the state in case you make a typo or something. You can add some checks in here for like printing. If there's not a number here, you can print that there was a mistake or something, so you know to fix it. And then we will do a delay for however long the duration is, and make that into a function. And then we will check if the states player, so if the player is inside of the states, just another check like you have here. Then it will find the states for the player that you set here, and it will make it equal to nil. So pretty much it will just remove the state that you set here after the duration has passed, and it checks if the next thing after the player is equal to nil. Then this is a bit more confusing to explain, but it's just another check. So if the next thing after the states player, so inside of the player, if there's nothing there, then it will set it back to just the base of nothing. It's just another small check. Now let me get to the other functions. So these two functions are very simple. I will copy them in here at the top there. So what these functions do, I'll first explain this one. So this one is basically just to get every single state that the player has. So it will return every single state for the player. That's all it does. And you just do this by doing return states player. So it will return all the states inside of the table here for the player. And this get state one returns a single one that you're looking for. So you put the player and then the state key, so the state that you're looking for. So if states player, so if it's there, you are inside of the states, then it will return states player state key. So it will return the value of the state that you are looking for. So parrying, for example, and you're checking if you actually have parrying as a state, then if you have it, it will return it here. And if there's nothing, then it will return nil. That's all that does. Next function is I'll get back to the remove the set sum function, because that's one of the long ones, and I will explain the remove states and the clear all states. These are also very simple, so let me just add them down here. Hold on, there we go. So remove states just removes a certain state from the player, or every single state. Actually no, I don't think it removes. I will check. So state key for the state that you want to remove. It can actually remove all the states if you want, so I don't think I need this function. No, because this one's used for the stun as well. Okay, so pretty much you put the player and the state key. Same as before, if the player is not inside of there, then it will return end, another check. So if the state key is actually set in here, then it will pretty much just remove that state from the player. And if the next thing after it is, this is just the same thing that you had inside of the return or the set state here, it's just the same thing as this. If not, so if you don't put a state key, then it will remove every single state from the player. So it will remove every state. And the clear all states one just pretty much goes inside of the both tables, and it just clears everything for player. So it pretty much removes every single player's states. So this is like very situational where you'd want to use this, but it's good to just have it. So yeah, now the final two, I'll quickly add this one because this is just to clear the table when the player leaves. So given the players the player removing, and so this is pretty much when the player leaves, it will fire the stuff in here. So states player, so for the player that left, it will make it equal to nil. So it just takes it out of the table. And the same thing for the stun one. And this is really important because if the player leaves and you don't do this, then this table will just keep getting filled and filled and filled until eventually the game will be extremely laggy. And then the final one is the stun one. Now this one's quite long, but I will go through it. So let me copy it. I will just put that down here so it's away from everything. And let's go through this. So this whole thing is for stunning. So yeah, let me go through it. So you want to have the player, the value, so true or false. Actually no, value in this case is to check if you want to remove it or yeah. So the duration is how long you want it to last, and the stun speed is the speed that you want the player to be walking when they get stunned. So some checks for the player, so if it doesn't have a character or a humanoid or stuff like that, it will return end. Then we get the humanoid because we need this to change the speed, so it will do player or character find first child humanoid. Same thing for as before. If you're not in the states, then it will add you to the states folder, and this does use the states folder for setting stunned, so you can actually check it with these get state, but the actual timer side of things inside of the stun timers, that's how it works. So let's go through this then. So if value, then, so if you put a value for this, inside of the states folder for the player, it will set stunned equal to true. If not states player original walk speed, then so if inside of the states player there is no original walk speed value, then it will set that so it knows what to set your walk speed back to when you are unstunned. And then here it sets your walk speed to stun speed or 0 if you didn't actually put a stun speed in there, so if you leave it blank. Then here it gets the time, so this is for the duration side of things. So it will get the time, and time is just a number since the current server started, and this will be end time, so it will be time plus the duration that you set, and you will just use this to check how much time has passed pretty much. So if stun time is player, so if you are in the stun timers table, then stun timers player.end time is equal to math.max. Just some math, it's a bit confusing to explain, but it'll pretty much just check for the player's end time of their stun, and this is only if you are already in there. But if you're not in there, then it will actually set a new one. So stun timers player is equal to new table with end time is equal to end time. So this is just a, don't get these two confused. This one's uppercase and this one's lowercase. I'll zoom in a bit more. This is just so you can find it later inside of the table. So this is dot end time inside of the table, not this one here. Don't want the assistant. So it will set it equal to that, and then we'll use that to check later. Then here you do a coroutine, because coroutines are just amazing. So inside of this coroutine, we'll do a loop, and also coroutines also you can not have this loop just stop everything else inside of the script. So that's what you do with coroutine. Now here we do a while loop. So while stun timers player, so while you are in there and time is more than stun timers time. So it pretty much just checks if the current time is more than, less than the time inside of the table that you set here. And if it is, then it will keep waiting until it's not. And when it stops being like that, it will continue on. So here it pretty much just sets it back to nil, gives you your walk speed back, sets everything to nil. You can read this more, but I'll just broadly explaining it so I don't have to spend too much time on this. And same thing as before and all the other ones. So, and then at the end it will set stun timers player to nil because you don't have any stun in there. And down here is for if the value is not in there. So if it's not true, because value would be a true or false. So if value, because if you put if value, it pretty much just means if value is equal to true. So if value is equal to true, then if value is not equal to true, then it's pretty much just to remove stunned. And same thing as before, set to walk speed back. This is if you want to manually remove the stun, and you don't do this inside of the remove states because you have to remove the stun timer as well. So you would just call the set stun and put the value as false, and the rest does not matter because with the value being false, it will remove the stun for the player. So use it situationally, and yeah, this is pretty much it for the explanation. It's quite simple, and it is used in so many games. And now one last thing, because I didn't really go over it all too well, I will actually show you an example of setting the state with an action. So I will create a button that you can press and it will set a state. So I'll have a button here, a part. Inside of here you want to add a click detector. With the click detector you can't do it on mobile, so I'll actually add a proximity prompt. Add a proximity prompt in here. And you also want to add a script. You can add the script inside of the part, or you can add in server script service. I already have the script inside of server script service from before, so we'll open this up and keep this, which is for requiring the module. And inside of here, we will take that out. So you just want to do game.workspace dot part. So we're going to get this part dot proximity prompt dot triggered connect function. Perfect. So pretty much when you trigger the proximity prompt, and you also want to add player in here, when you trigger the proximity prompt, it will fire the code inside of here. So in here we can just make it set a state. So let's see, right here, what do we need? We need the player, state key, the value, so true, false, whatever, and the duration. So in here we can just set the state. So player is the first thing. Second thing is the state. So let's say clicked, that's the state. Value will be true because you clicked it. And then the duration, so let's do 0.4. So now it will set the state clicked true for 0.4 seconds. And the way you actually see this is inside of your player, or at least I believe it's inside of the player. Let me just check real quick. Oh no, this one doesn't actually set the attribute. This one stores it in here. So what you can actually do is, if you'd like to, you can make it set as an attribute here, or you can just check inside of it. You don't really need to have a set attribute, though it's sometimes nice depending on what you're making. In this case, we don't need that, so I'll actually just do module.getState, and you know what, we'll do return state, so it gets every single state for the player. Module.returnState player. So now you can see it get every single state for the player when I press this button, or when I interact with the activity proximity prompt. So let's see, maybe I missed something I'm supposed to put in there. Return state player, or I probably did something wrong in here. Okay, there we go. I made a slight mistake because I forgot that this only returns it returns it, so you need to actually receive it. So pretty much all you want to do is do local state, so you make it a variable and it will be equal to the module.returnState. And now you can just print it out so you can see it here. I will show you again real quick. Let me remove this. So pretty much let's press play, and if you interact with this, it will print the table for the states that you currently have, and you can see here you have the state clicked and it's equal to true. Now one more thing, I will create another button, so this can be part 2, and I will separate these actually so you can see it more in action. So copy this, paste it, name this part 2, and inside of here you don't want to set the state because you only want this to check the state, and in here don't do that, so this only sets the state. So what this does, so this part here will set our state, and this part here will print our state. So it's nil because it took too long, but if I do it quick enough, you can see that it has that. So if I press this, it'll be equal to nil because I currently don't have a state. But if I press this and press that, I did it too slow, but if I press them quick enough, see, it'll print that out. That's because it's set to 0.4. So if I just set it to like 1.5 real quick, you can see it a bit better. And let me actually play it so I don't have to run there. See, if I press this and then press that, there we go. Press it again, it's gone now because it's been over 1.5 seconds. So that's pretty much how it works. And if I spam this, let me open it, you see it doesn't actually really change anything. If I spam it, it doesn't change anything. It doesn't like add a billion of these, you know. It just pretty much, because you already have the state set to that, it will just ignore it. So yeah, that's basically it. Now I will also be showing you an example of a game where it's actually used and show you how it's actually just pretty much how it's used. So this one's a bit of an advanced one compared to the other one. It's got some other features, and I won't be opening it because I'm not really trying to show it. But pretty much, if I press play here, yep, okay. So this sets up the enemies, and if I go over here, if I punch one of these guys, it will set the state, and I can actually show you inside of the NPCs. Now, the state manager I made just now is set up to work for players only, so you can't set a state for the characters. But this one is a bit more advanced, so you can see how it works is inside of the attributes, it will set something, as you can see here. So if I attack them, for example, hopefully it doesn't. If I attack them, actually no, it won't do anything to these guys because they already have the state in there, so it doesn't actually matter. But pretty much it will set one of these states to them inside of the attributes. Like if you hit them, or if you are doing something like I'm dashing, it will set a state inside of the attributes, and then I can check for other things to see if I'm allowed to do anything. So this is just an alternative to using values like bool values, like having a config folder inside of the characters. It's like a more up-to-date version, and it works great. Smooth, as you can see here. So I've shown this system a couple times in other videos, and I will actually be making an updated combat system video very soon. So that's kind of why I'm making a state manager, so I can use this in that video. So be ready for that, and make sure you do have the state manager because I'm not going to be exploiting it. I will leave the link to the state manager in that video in the description, so you can get it and you can follow along, or the link to the video. But this is an in-game example, and for simulators it would be a similar thing, but it's less needed in simulators because they are very simple. You would just use the state manager to set a state to the player when they do something. It's quite situational in simulators because you don't really need to do any checks that are that important.